On the vast, endless fields of America, wild boars are becoming a serious threat to farmers. They invade farming areas, destroying crops and damaging the land, leaving farmers who are already struggling with nature helpless in the face of a new threat: these relentless invaders. During the day, the scorching sunlight does little to alleviate the anxiety caused by the boars. At night, they become even more aggressive, roaming the fields, leaving deep tracks that ruin rows of corn, rice, and potatoes, rendering the hard work of farmers meaningless. The fertile soil, carefully preserved by generations of ancestors, seems to have lost its value as wild boars take over, overwhelming everything in their path. Despite the farmers' best efforts to drive them away, building fences and setting traps, nothing seems to work. The wild boars, with their intelligence and survival skills, are not easily defeated. The farmers have tried using chemicals, setting up various types of traps, but none have been able to stop the destruction caused by the boars. Despair grows heavier on their shoulders as one crop after another is ruined, and their livelihoods dwindle away. Now, the only hope they have is the hunters, experienced individuals skilled in tracking and controlling wild animals. With weapons in hand and knowledge of how to hunt wild boars, these hunters are the last resort for farmers to regain control of their land. Each hunting trip, each step taken by the hunters on the fields, carries the hope that they will bring peace back to the land, so that wild boars are no longer a nightmare. However, until that happens, the battle continues, not only a battle for the farmers, but also for the hunters, against these unpredictable wild creatures. We, the seasoned hunters, never wanted to resort to killing animals in such a manner, but we find ourselves with no other choice. The farmers have reached the point of complete despair, and we must help them. It is not something we take lightly. Over the years, we have learned to respect nature and the creatures that inhabit it. We understand the delicate balance between man and beast, and how one action can ripple through the environment. But these wild boars, with their relentless destruction, have pushed the farmers to the brink, and now we are their last hope. Our decision to hunt is not driven by a thirst for violence, but by necessity. We've seen the anguish in the farmers' eyes as they look at their ruined crops, the devastation that threatens to ruin everything they've worked for. We know that if we don't intervene, the cycle of destruction will continue, and the very livelihood of these farmers will be lost. It is a difficult decision, but one that we must make for the greater good. With each hunt, we carry the weight of this responsibility. We are not just killing animals, we are trying to restore balance, to bring back the harmony that once existed. We aim to protect the land, the crops, and the farmers who depend on them. It is a job we don't take lightly, but it's one that must be done. The hunt wasn't easy. These creatures are fast, cunning, and relentless. But with years of experience under our belts, we knew how to track them, how to anticipate their movements, and how to respond when the moment was right. We moved silently, carefully, every step deliberate, understanding the weight of what we were doing. By the time the sun began to set, we had managed to reduce the threat, at least for now. The fields, which had been ravaged by the boars earlier, now had a moment of reprieve. The farmers, though exhausted and worn, could see the glimmer of hope once again. We had done what we could today, but we knew the fight wasn't over. This was just one battle in a much longer war. The wild boars would come back, and we would be ready to defend the land once more. On today's hunting trip, we successfully brought down more than 30 wild boars. It was a long and arduous day, but as we made our way through the fields, we knew it was necessary to prevent further destruction. Each boar we took down was a small victory, a step closer to restoring some sense of peace and balance for the farmers. The next morning, we set out once again for the hunt. Today, the wild boars we encountered were massive, unlike anything we had seen before. Their sheer size was intimidating, their tusks sharp and threatening. It felt like a new level of challenge, one that tested not just our skills, but our resolve. As we tracked them through the dense underbrush, the weight of the task ahead weighed heavily on us. These were no ordinary boars. They were older, stronger, and more aggressive, as if they were the leaders of the pack. We moved with caution, knowing that any misstep could be costly. Every time one of us took a shot, we held our breath, hoping it would land true. The day passed in a blur of action, adrenaline, and exhaustion. We couldn't keep track of how many we had brought down, the numbers blending together as the hunt continued. What mattered was the result. We knew we had made a significant dent in the boar population, but the exact count was uncertain. It didn't matter anymore. The victory felt hollow. We had done what we had to do, but the boars kept coming, and we could only wonder how long this fight would last. By the time we returned to camp, there was no celebration, no sense of triumph. The job was done, but the reality of the ongoing battle hung in the air. We were just one step closer to helping the farmers, but the war was far from over. We moved on to another area, a place where the wild boars were far more intelligent and aggressive. These boars seemed to have learned from their past encounters with us, and they were not easy targets. As soon as we entered their territory, we could feel the tension in the air, a sense that these creatures were not going to be easily outsmarted. They moved with surprising speed, darting through the thick underbrush and avoiding our shots with an almost uncanny precision. Every time we thought we had one in our sights, it would disappear into the shadows, leaving us frustrated and exhausted. It was like a game of cat and mouse, with the wild boars always staying one step ahead of us. We had to be even more careful and patient than before. The boars weren't just running blindly, they were actively dodging, using the terrain to their advantage. Their intelligence made them even more dangerous, as they knew exactly how to evade us and where to hide. Every step we took felt like we were being hunted just as much as we were hunting them. The chase was relentless, and it became clear that this was no ordinary hunt. It wasn't just about tracking and shooting anymore. We had to think like the boars, anticipate their next moves, and adjust our strategy on the fly. They were a formidable adversary, and we were beginning to realize just how much more we had to give if we were going to succeed. But we had no choice. We couldn't stop now. The farmers were counting on us, and we had to finish what we started, no matter how hard it became. After clearing the wild boars from the vast fields, we pressed on, moving deeper into the dark, dense forests. The air in the woods was thick with moisture, and the shadows seemed to close in around us. The light barely filtered through the towering trees, creating a foreboding atmosphere. But we couldn't stop now. We had cleared the fields, but the boars had likely retreated into these woods, finding sanctuary in the darkness where they felt safe. With every step, the forest grew more oppressive. The ground was soft and uneven, covered with fallen leaves and tangled roots. It was more difficult to move quickly, and the constant rustling of leaves underfoot made us cautious. But the boars were still out there, and we had to find them before they regrouped and caused more destruction. The chase in the woods was different from the open fields. Here, the boars could hide in the underbrush, their dark shapes blending seamlessly with the surroundings. We had to be extra vigilant, using every skill and tactic we had learned over the years to track their movements. The trees and thick foliage made it harder to get a clear shot, and we had to rely on our senses, listening for the slightest sound of movement or the snap of a twig. Hours passed as we combed through the forest, the hunt becoming more exhausting with every step. The wild boars, still as clever and elusive as before, managed to stay just out of reach, evading our traps and avoiding our shots. It felt like we were being tested, pushed to our limits. But we couldn't give up. The farmers were depending on us, and we knew that as long as there were boars left in these woods, we couldn't stop searching. The forest seemed endless, but we pressed on, determined to finish what we had started. In addition to using firearms to take down the wild boars, we also had another method: large steel traps. These traps were an essential tool in our hunt, especially when dealing with the more cunning boars that were skilled at evading gunshots. The steel traps were heavy duty, designed to hold the boar securely once caught. We would set them up in areas where we believed the boars were likely to pass through, such as near feeding spots or along their usual paths. The process of setting the traps required careful planning and patience. We had to choose the right location, ensuring that the boars wouldn't notice the trap before stepping into it. It was a delicate balance: too obvious and they'd avoid it, too hidden and we might miss them entirely. Once the traps were set, we would retreat and wait, watching from a distance, hoping the boars would wander into the carefully laid snare. Using these traps was both a strategic and tiring approach. While it didn't offer the immediate satisfaction of taking down a boar with a well-aimed shot, it allowed us to deal with the problem over time, without the need for constant pursuit. There was a sense of relief when a boar was successfully trapped. It meant one less to worry about, one less to evade our guns or destroy the crops. The traps were not foolproof though. Boars are smart, and sometimes they would sense the trap's presence or avoid it altogether. But over time, with patience and persistence, we found them to be an invaluable tool in our efforts. It wasn't always glamorous, but it was effective. And in the end, that's what mattered. Whether we used guns or traps, our goal was always the same: to protect the land, the crops, and the livelihoods of the farmers who had placed their trust in us. Each hunt, each trap we set, was a step closer to ensuring that the farmers would have a harvest to bring in. It wasn't just about removing the boars, it was about restoring hope. We knew how much effort the farmers put into their work, how every season was a gamble, and how the boars could undo months of hard labor in a single night. We had witnessed their frustration, their desperation, and it drove us to push forward, even when the task seemed overwhelming.
Thank you all for standing shoulder to shoulder with us in this fight. Last week, an outbreak of African swine fever swept through our farms like a wildfire, wiping out every pig in our livestock pens across multiple properties. The financial hit was staggering, losses estimated at over $10,000, but the real pain cut deeper. For dozens of farming families in our close-knit rural community, this wasn't just about money. It was about survival, about the future of the land we've worked for generations. As we scrambled to understand how this disaster struck, the truth emerged. Wild hogs, those relentless carriers of the deadly virus, had infiltrated our farming zones. These beasts roamed unchecked through thick forests, slipped past our fences, and left devastation in their wake. We couldn't just sit back and let everything we built collapse. We farmers, hunters, neighbors had to act, and we had to act now. At first light, as the sun peeked over the rolling hills, hunters from every corner of the county gathered at the edge of the forest. The air was crisp, heavy with the scent of pine, damp earth, and fallen leaves, a mix of tranquility and tension that set the stage for what was to come. Ancient oaks and towering pines loomed overhead, their branches knitting a canopy that filtered the dawn's glow into a patchwork of light and shadow. We checked our gear with practiced hands, rifles cleaned, ammo loaded, knives sharpened, while swapping quiet words of resolve. The stakes were clear. This wasn't just a hunt. It was a mission to protect our way of life. Then we unleashed our hunting dogs, those fierce, four-legged allies whose instincts were as sharp as our own. With a chorus of eager barks, they tore into the underbrush, noses to the ground, tracking the faint traces of their prey. Within minutes, their howls pierced the forest silence, a signal that they'd found the hogs' hideout. The wild hogs, flushed from their lair, erupted from the brush in a chaotic stampede, charging straight toward our position. Instinct took over. We raised our rifles, eyes narrowed, fingers steady on the triggers, every sense honed to the moment. The first shots cracked through the air, sharp and deafening, and the forest exploded into a whirlwind of motion. Hogs scattered, their hooves churning the earth, kicking up clouds of dust and leaves in a frantic bid for escape. It felt like a scene straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, every heartbeat pulsing with the thrill of life or death stakes. Then, out of the chaos, a massive boar, its eyes blazing with primal fury, barreled toward us, tusks gleaming like daggers in the dim light. We met it with a hail of bullets, each shot a calculated strike. Wounded, the beast faltered, its legs buckling as it skidded across the dirt, leaving a dark streak of blood on the forest floor. Our dogs, relentless and fearless, surged forward, their jaws clamping down to finish the job with brutal efficiency. This forest, with its dense thickets and towering trees, was a perfect sanctuary for the hogs. Tangled vines, overgrown ferns, and rocky outcrops gave them endless places to hide, but they couldn't outwit the keen noses of our hounds. As the chase intensified, a handful of hogs burst from the undergrowth, followed closely by the rest of the herd. Their grunts and squeals mingled with the relentless crack of gunfire as we opened fire, each bullet tearing through the air with deadly precision. But these weren't easy targets. Some hogs were built like tanks, tough, stubborn, and fiercely aggressive. I found myself squeezing the trigger 3, even 4 times to bring one down, my pulse racing with each shot. Though we couldn't take out the entire herd, the bodies piling up were proof of our team's grit and determination. Just as I was cursing the ones that slipped away, a shadow lunged from the trees. The lead boar, craftier than the rest, hadn't joined the panicked flight of its kin. Instead, it had slunk into the dense brush, moving like a ghost, trying to vanish into the forest's heart. But we knew these animals too well. Their cunning was no match for our experience. From a rocky perch high on the ridge, I steadied my rifle, lining up the shot with care. I aimed for the sweet spot just behind its ear, a kill zone I'd hit countless times before. I exhaled, squeezed the trigger, and the rifle kicked against my shoulder. The shot echoed, crisp and final. The boar staggered, its legs giving out as it tumbled down the slope, its bristly hide scraping against rocks and roots. It lay still moments later, a testament to our resolve. That kill wasn't just about one animal. It was about striking a blow for every farmer who'd lost their herd, every family staring down an uncertain future. With the herd's path now clear, we split into smaller squads, each group fanning out to cover a different section of the forest. Every step was measured, every glance sharp, as we navigated the uneven terrain. A sudden rustle in the bushes snapped me to attention. I raised my rifle, heart pounding, scanning the shadows for movement. Was it the wind or something heavier? Then I saw them. A handful of hogs, stragglers who thought they'd escaped the chaos, ambling along without a care. Their complacency was a fatal mistake. There was no room for hesitation. I took aim, and a series of precise shots rang out, each one finding its mark. The hogs dropped, one after another, their bodies thudding against the earth. In just a few minutes, the herd that had spread disease and ravaged our crops was wiped out, a small but significant victory in our ongoing war. On our way back to the rally point, my buddy David spotted a familiar shape slipping through the trees below. A lone hog, separated from its pack, was trying to melt into the shadows. We didn't need words to know what came next. We gauged its trajectory, adjusted our approach, and gave chase, our boots crunching over pine needles and twigs. Each move was deliberate, one misstep, and it could disappear into the wilderness. As the hog broke into a run, I fired, landing a clean shot to its flank, then another to be sure. It collapsed, its momentum carrying it a few feet before it lay still. The chase had been intense, leaving us winded but triumphant. As I caught my breath, I felt a surge of pride, not just for the kill. Welcome to a story filled with wild adventure and deep emotions. Today, we're going to explore one of the most intense and captivating survival battles between man and nature, wild boar hunting in Texas. This is not just part of a long-standing tradition in the area. It has become an urgent necessity as more and more wild animals are posing a direct threat to crops and people's way of life. Life in rural Texas is closely tied to the land and nature. People here don't just rely on the trees, soil, and crops. They also have to face challenges posed by the very nature they live alongside. Wild boars, strong and intelligent creatures, are no longer a rare danger for Texans. They've become a haunting presence, an unavoidable part of life for thousands of people in this state. In recent years, wild boars have grown into a major threat for rural communities in Texas. Every night, as darkness falls, these wild boars storm across cultivated fields, destroying crops and attacking livestock, disrupting the lives of thousands of farmers. But why have they become such a serious threat? Texas enjoys a mild climate, with winters that aren't too harsh, and an abundance of food sources, especially in its forests, grasslands, and agricultural lands. This has created the perfect environment for wild boar populations to thrive. The lack of natural predators has contributed to their explosive growth. Over the years, their numbers have skyrocketed, and they've invaded areas where they were rarely seen before. Agricultural lands, once peaceful homes for livestock and crops, now suffer massive devastation from this wild species. Why have wild boars become such a huge threat? These boars don't just destroy trees. They also dig up the soil, ruining cornfields, barley fields, and other crops. They dig the earth in search of food, damaging irrigation systems, and turning the land barren. Meanwhile, livestock like cattle and sheep aren't safe from their attacks either. A herd of wild boars can tear through fences, attack livestock, and even threaten humans. These dangers create enormous tension in the daily lives of Texans. Thousands of hunters, from everyday rural folk to seasoned professionals, know that their lives and the lives of their loved ones depend on protecting their crops and livestock from these animals. Hunting wild boars has, therefore, become an integral part of their daily existence. It's not just a task, it's a matter of survival. As the sun sets behind the hills, a group of hunters prepares for the hunt. They're not just carrying guns. They're equipped with essential tools like flashlights, thermal imaging scopes, and, especially, their hunting dogs. These dogs, trained from puppyhood, play a vital role in helping the hunters track and corner the boars. The hunting community believes that the coordination between hunter and dog is the key to success in this endeavor. The hunters begin their journey, and the brave dogs take the lead, sniffing the air and barking in the darkness, marking the location of the boars. These dogs, like coonhounds or catahoulas, are indispensable companions to the hunters. They're not just tools to aid in the hunt. They're loyal partners, willing to face danger just to protect their masters. Every time a bark echoes through the night, the hunters feel their hearts race. They know that the battle is about to begin. The hunt becomes increasingly tense as the wild boars move swiftly through the forests and fields. At this point, every step, every trace on the ground carries significant meaning. A small clue, a broken twig, or a fresh hoofprint in the mud is crucial for the hunters to pinpoint the boar's location. Wild boar hunting in Texas is not just about grabbing a gun and waiting. It's an art, a delicate balance of skill, instinct, and patience. This becomes even clearer when a large boar emerges from the brush, sprinting across the vast fields. The dogs chase after it, their paws thundering on the ground, their barks never ceasing. The hunter must stay focused, no distractions allowed, because even the smallest mistake could cause them to lose their shot. Every step in the hunt is soaked in sweat. The hunters must be patient, moving slowly, their eyes fixed on every trace. They listen to the wind, the rustling leaves, and every sound in the forest that might give away the boar's position. These creatures are smart and quick. They can sense the presence of humans and will change direction in an instant. When the boars are finally cornered, the tension reaches its peak. The dogs rush in, driving the boars into a small area. The hunters move in, step by step, their hearts pounding in their chests. Their eyes are locked on their prey. Every movement, every response from the boars is a potential turning point. A single shot rings out in the quiet forest, and the boar falls. The hunt is over, but the tension lingers in the air. This hunt is not just a simple victory. For these hunters, it's a sacred duty to protect their families and their livelihoods. They don't rejoice in killing a wild creature. They're relieved to have protected what's most precious to them. But this battle doesn't end when the boar is downed. After every hunt, the hunters look back at the fields that have been ravaged. These are the lands they've worked tirelessly on for an entire season, now left in ruin. Wild boars don't just destroy crops. They bring public health risks, like African swine fever or leptospirosis, which can spread from wild animals to livestock and even to humans. We can't forget the hunting dogs, the unsung heroes of this battle. Despite the exhaustion after a long day of chasing wild boars, they never leave their master's side, always loyal, always ready for the next fight. Their bond with their humans is profound, a connection that only those who live in rural communities truly. The scorching heat of the Anatolian mountains clings to every breath, a relentless force that tests the will of anyone daring to step into this wild land. Over years of hunting, through countless dangers, one memory stands etched in my soul, a moment that still sends shivers down my spine. It was the breathtaking face-off with a massive wild boar, a creature of raw, untamed power. I was with Mehmet, my closest friend and a seasoned hunter, a man who knows these mountains like the back of his hand. What started as a routine boar control hunt, well, it turned into something else entirely. Nature, you see, has a way of humbling us all. Anatolia's dense oak forests and endless wheat fields breed boars unlike any other giants nurtured by the land's bounty. Mehmet crouched low, studying fresh tracks in the damp earth, broken branches, scattered droppings. His eyes narrowed. "There's a leader out there," he whispered, "and it's huge." His words hit me like a jolt. My heart raced. This wasn't just a hunt anymore. It felt like a challenge, a test of courage set by the wilderness itself. We split up, taking positions along familiar forest paths. I crouched behind a massive rock, my back against an ancient oak, my breath steady, my senses sharp. The forest was alive, leaves rustling, birds calling faintly. I checked my rifle, fingers grazing the trigger, ready for whatever came next. But deep down, a flicker of unease stirred. I'd hunted before, but something about this felt different. Then, a gunshot echoed from Mehmet's position, a sharp crack that shattered the silence. My pulse surged. Adrenaline flooded my veins. I gripped my rifle tighter, eyes locked on the path ahead. Moments later, there it was. A colossal boar stepped out from the brush. Its black coat gleamed under the dappled sunlight. Its curved tusks glinted like blades. And those eyes, they didn't flinch. They stared at me, curious, almost defiant. Time froze. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might betray me. The boar took a step forward, then another. Each thud of its hooves sent a tremor through the ground. It was closing the gap, and with every second, I felt the danger grow. If I didn't act, I'd be the prey. My instincts screamed. I raised my rifle, aimed, and fired. The shot tore through the stillness. The boar staggered, then collapsed, its massive body limp on the forest floor. I exhaled, my breath shaky, relief washing over me like a wave. I'd done it, but only just. Before I could catch my breath, Mehmet's voice crackled through the radio. More of them out there. Stay put. My heart leapt again. I held my ground, eyes scanning the path. Minutes later, another boar appeared, just as massive as the first. Its tusks gleamed, its bulk casting a shadow across the trail. But this time I was ready. The fear was still there, but experience steadied my hands. I took a deep breath, aimed, and fired. The shot was clean. The boar lurched, then tumbled down the mountainside, a cascade of earth and branches trailing behind it. That moment, it's burned into me. Standing there, rifle in hand, I felt a mix of triumph and awe. The forest had tested me, and I'd survived. But more than that, it taught me respect. Respect for the raw power of these creatures, and for the untamed heart of Anatolia itself. The Anatolian forest, with its towering oaks and unrelenting heat, it never lets you rest. After facing down two monstrous boars, Mehmet and I stood in the heart of the wilderness, our breaths heavy, our hearts still racing. But the forest doesn't care about your victories. It's always watching, always waiting. The boars here aren't just big. They're fierce, cunning, built like tanks with hides that laugh at ordinary bullets. We knew the hunt was far from over, and every step forward was a dance with danger. Mehmet signaled me to move. We regrouped, our eyes scanning the ground for signs. Deep hoof prints, snapped twigs, fresh droppings. Every mark was a clue, a story written in the earth. Mehmet read it like a book. "They're close," he said, his voice low, steady. I nodded, gripping my rifle tighter. The air felt heavier now, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, a massive shape burst from the underbrush. Another boar, as big as the others, its black coat shimmering, its tusks curved like scythes. It didn't run. It stood its ground, head lowered, ready to charge. Mehmet didn't hesitate. His shot rang out sharp, precise. The boar collapsed, its bulk shaking the earth. We cheered, a brief burst of triumph. But we knew better than to relax. The forest was still alive with threats. Our hunting dogs, loyal, fearless. They didn't stop. They tore through the brush, noses to the ground, ears alert. Minutes later, their barks echoed from deep in the forest, urgent, fierce. Mehmet's eyes met mine. "They've got another one. Let's go." We ran, dodging thorns, leaping over rocks, our hearts pounding. When we reached them, the sight stopped me cold. The dogs had cornered a giant boar, bigger than any we'd seen. Its hide was like armor, its tusks glinted like knives, and its eyes burned with defiance. Snarled, ready to tear into the dogs. We didn't give it the chance. Our shots rang out together, and the beast fell, the forest falling silent around it. These boars, they're something else. Bigger, tougher than anything we'd hunted before. Their hides are so thick, regular bullets barely scratch them. We used large caliber rifles.